What's up, you guys? Yes, welcome to my channel or welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I'm trying to put together as many YouTuber intros in the beginning as I can as possible. Do you remember when Shane Dawson wasn't problematic? The answer is never. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the last day of the endocrine system. And then at the end, I have a short video that I'm going to share with you, but I can't play it during this video. Otherwise, my video will get taken down. But that video is 5 minutes and 45 seconds long, and you must watch the entire thing. Not only is it very cute and very exciting, but it is an excellent review of the function of the endocrine system. So we will watch it together in class, likely when we return, but it is difficult to understand. So please watch it twice. Watch it once by yourself after you finish my video, and then we're gonna watch it together next week and discuss. Capiche? Capiche. All right, let's go ahead and get started with endocrine system day 3. All right, so what is the role of the pancreas in the endocrine system? That is today's aim. And hopefully you guys remember that the pancreas functions as both an organ, an accessory organ to be specific in the digestive system, and also as a gland and the only organ that is a part of the endocrine system. And you may remember, a hint in the do now, what 2 hormones our pancreas is responsible for producing. But before we go on to that, what is the role of the endocrine system in our bodies? So, our endocrine system helps our body maintain homeostasis by secreting hormones that allow certain changes to occur. And remember, the endocrine system is our body's slow chemical communication system, contrasted with our nervous system that sends signals much more quickly, right? Comparing a reflex to the changes that occur, for example, during puberty that occur over many years. So, what is the role of insulin and glucagon in the body? So, hopefully, we remember that insulin lowers blood sugar and glucagon increases blood sugar. Let's see, let's make those 2 different colors to contrast. And we also may recall that insulin assists our cells in utilizing the glucose in our blood, specifically by accompanying that glucose into the cell. Without insulin, our body can't use the glucose that we need to perform cellular respiration. And that excess glucose that may be in our blood because we've eaten too much at a specific time, or just simply because our body is not able to process everything that we've consumed at that time, not necessarily that it was too much, just too much at that one moment. Our body has a mechanism to keep that glucose stored, and that mechanism is called glycogen. And that glycogen that is produced in the liver can be broken down by glucagon if our blood sugar is too low. So our blood glucose has dropped. Glucagon directs the liver to break down its glycogen stores and to release that glucose into the bloodstream to increase our blood sugar, which might be something that happens if you're in the middle of a really strenuous exercise and you need a little extra glucose to assist your muscles to continue their effort there or that work. All right, so let's go on. All right, part A, endocrine system, pancreas. The endocrine system regulates our body's ability to maintain homeostasis by releasing chemicals called hormones. These hormones travel all over the body to deliver messages, much like the nervous system. Some of these endocrine cells are even found in the pancreas. These cells are called islets of Langerhans, and they secrete hormones, specifically insulin and glucagon. The hormone insulin promotes the absorption of glucose into the body's cells, thereby lowering the blood glucose level. It also stimulates the conversion of glucose to glycogen in the liver and in the skeletal muscle. The hormone glucagon, increases the blood glucose level by promoting the conversion of glycogen to glucose in the liver and the skeletal muscles. The glucose then passes from the organs back into the blood. So, this is what we were talking about in the introduction. Insulin promotes the absorption, it allows glucose to enter the body's cells. And this means there's less free glucose floating in the bloodstream, right? If the glucose has been pulled into the cells, it's no longer in the bloodstream. But then, if there's still excess glucose, it converts that glucose into glycogen in the liver, and it is stored both in the liver and in the skeletal muscle throughout the body. That way, there is glycogen stores available near cells throughout our body, right? Because we have muscle almost everywhere. The hormone glucagon increases the blood glucose level. Remember, these two work together in a relationship, a feedback relationship, which we're going to look at more a little bit lower. Oh, forgive me, I lost my place. The hormone glucagon increases the blood glucose level by promoting the conversion of that glycogen that was stored when the insulin hormone directed the body to say, oh, there was too much glucose here. We need to lower the blood glucose. So we're going to take some of that excess glucose, pull it in, and convert it into glycogen. Glucagon then can break that glycogen down and turn it back into glucose when we need it. So, sort of almost like a bank system where you deposit the glucose when you have too much, but then you can cash it out when you need it. Thanks, glucagon. The glucose then passes from the organs back into the blood, so it can be circulated throughout our body. Through their opposite effects, insulin and glucagon function to help the body maintain homeostasis by keeping the blood glucose level within certain limits. So those two hormones work against each other to help maintain the most stable blood glucose level. And that is something that's very important to remember about your blood sugar. We do want it to remain within a certain range, but more than anything, we want it to remain stable. So even if your blood sugar is within a healthy range, if it's fluctuating frequently, that would cause extra stress to your pancreas and extra stress potentially to the organs in your body. So this is why it's really important, again, that you remember that homeostasis is the stable environment, not spiking and going down. So the ideal goal of insulin and glucagon together is to maintain that nice, flat, steady blood sugar. And if you have major fluctuations in your blood glucose, hypoglycemia, really low blood sugar, or hyperglycemia, really high blood sugar, that could indicate that you're either pre-diabetic or potentially have started to develop diabetes or some other endocrine system regulation problem. A mouthful. So, why do you believe, what do you believe works faster, the nervous or endocrine system? So, what do you believe works faster, the nervous system or the endocrine system? Obviously, the nervous system, right? That's our body's quick chemical communication system. And those messages are electrochemical, right? They're sent extremely quickly. All of this movement that I'm doing, that's my nervous system. I couldn't even demonstrate you endocrine system function because it takes such a long time. But like all this hair I grew on my head, thanks, endocrine system. So, what are the two hormones secreted by the pancreas? Insulin and glucagon. And we can see here this relationship, and you can see how both the liver and the pancreas are a part of not only our body's other systems, but also the digestive system, right? And you can see the stomach there. So our liver is also part of the excretory system. And in this way, it's also sort of part of the endocrine system, right? Creating the glycogen stores, but we don't typically consider it part of the endocrine system. Whereas the pancreas here, you can see, is right there wedged in the middle of the action, part of our digestive and endocrine systems. But it's different parts of the pancreas that actually perform those different functions. And we're talking about in the endocrine system, those cells called the islets of Langerhans, which are the cells that function as endocrine glands, producing those hormones, insulin and glucagon. So, how does insulin serve to regulate our blood glucose level? Insulin is released when our blood glucose level is too high. So that signal, the blood glucose exceeding beyond a certain level, triggers the pancreas to release insulin. It allows glucose to be absorbed into the body and saves glucose in the form of glycogen by the liver, right? And it converts that glucose into glycogen that can be used later. And whenever we eat, that triggers our body to start releasing insulin, right? Because insulin not only lowers the blood sugar by converting it into glycogen, but this key step here, insulin actually allows our cells to absorb that glucose. Without insulin, we could not absorb glucose into the cells. And you can see why diabetes is such a terrible, terrible problem. If your body cannot use insulin, your body would have a tremendous difficulty performing cellular respiration, which is what is responsible for almost every action we can complete. It is critical to our survival, and it is why people that have diabetes require lifelong treatments. And the groups that are doing diabetes for their project will tell us all about it soon. So, how does glucagon regulate our blood glucose level? Well, remember, these two hormones work in concert with each other with opposite actions. So, where insulin lowers the blood glucose, glucagon raises it by taking those glycogen stores and breaking them down. So, glucagon released when blood glucose level is too low, and it allows for glycogen to be broken down into glucose and for glucose to be released back into the bloodstream. But why do we care so much about glucose, right? And I kind of already gave it away. It's because of cellular respiration. We need this glucose. It is important. You might think of sugar as a bad thing, but it's not. The reason humans like and crave sugar so much, it's because it's essential to our survival. But we should not eat too much of it because that, remember, type 2 diabetes is mostly caused by lifestyle choices. And unfortunately, those lifestyle choices are made really easy by widely available sugar and sweets and candy all over. But you can see here, this relationship is extremely important. And the maintenance of stable blood sugar becomes more difficult when we consume foods with a lot of sugar so that our body has to release more and more insulin to compensate for all this extra sugar in the bloodstream. Eventually, those glands in your pancreas can become exhausted by releasing so much insulin all the time to compensate for the extra sugar that you're consuming. And when that happens, that is the development, like I said before, of either pre-diabetes or full-blown type 2 diabetes. Some people are born with these conditions, and that's slightly different. That's type 1 diabetes, which we will talk about a little bit next week. All right, so this looks a little different than the graphic on your paper, but the information is the same. So our blood glucose level rises. That's right here. So if the glucose level rises above a certain point, what happens? Insulin is secreted. So our body is able to notice that our blood glucose has exceeded beyond the optimal level. Insulin. We need it. We need it. Why? So that we can actually utilize that glucose, pull it into our cells. And we also need it to convert that excess glucose into glycogen to help maintain that stable level of blood sugar. So this insulin lowers our blood glucose level. But then, maybe it's been a couple of hours since we've eaten, our blood glucose level now falls below the set point. What happens? Oh, insulin is secreted after we eat, right? Then glucagon is secreted, which raises our blood glucose level. And then, if the blood glucose rises beyond a certain point, insulin is secreted. And you can see this is a relationship, a feedback relationship that happens all of the time, every single day, many times a day. Anytime you eat or exercise or even are just sitting and doing your assignments on Zoom, your pancreas is working to maintain that stable blood sugar. And this type of regulation is known as a feedback response. And in the case of the pancreas, it is negative feedback. So, what do we mean by that? High blood sugar triggers insulin that lowers your blood sugar. Low blood sugar triggers glucagon that raises your blood sugar. This is a negative feedback reaction. And in general, in living environment, that's what we're talking about. There is an example, which we're not going to go into, but was mentioned in one of the videos we watched, of positive feedback. So what positive feedback is a hormone notices a response and it continues that response. Instead of, in this case, the body notices blood sugar is too high and it lowers it. For example, a positive feedback, the most common example is both breast milk development and also labor. So breast milk is a little bit easier to understand, but basically the baby going and seeking the breast milk, the baby consuming the milk and taking it out of the mammary glands, encourages the mammary glands to produce more milk. The baby drinks more milk, the mammary glands produce more milk. You can see both of those are going in the same direction, more, as opposed to blood sugar goes up, insulin drops it, blood sugar goes down, glucagon raises it. And that's the difference between positive and negative feedback, is if both relationships are going the same way. If I confused you, don't worry about that. And just remember that this is a negative feedback relationship. All right, so that is all I have for you today. Today's aim was what is the role of the pancreas in the endocrine system? This was Endocrine System Day 3, our last day of the endocrine system. And please do not forget to watch the 5-minute and 45-second review of the endocrine system that I've linked below. Have a super fantastic day. I've missed you guys this week, and I'll see you all on Zoom on Tuesday. Bye, guys.